All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ask Octopus, where the customer success team at Octopus answers some of your interesting questions. Questions we get from customers we talk to directly, customer or questions from the community Slack, or even support questions that come in through email. So I'm Ryan Russo, and today I've got James, Sean, and Derek with me. How are you guys doing?
Hey Ryan, how are you?
I'm good. All right, let's jump into it. I've got a question that may look familiar to, it definitely looks familiar to you guys, but may look familiar to people who tune in and watch these videos regularly. And it's how can I use Octopus.Client with spaces? Now I've already done a video on this, but I've got some new information. So you just like, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to do another video and show a easier way to use it with PowerShell. So let me escape out of here and jump over to Visual Studio Code. And I'll show the method that I showed last time and then show what I've learned since then. I was actually working with one of the engineers last night to figure out, I was trying to help him get his PowerShell script working with spaces and Octopus.Client. We had a few fights with PowerShell, but we eventually got it figured out. And then somebody on the team told us about a method that we weren't aware of that is a little bit easier to use. So I've got my script set up here and starting a little bit lower because all of my sensitive information, API key and all that's above. But if you remember from the last video, we do the standard Octopus.Client setup. We set up an endpoint, we set up a repository. So this is the repository that's going to be using the default space. And then we do some actions. This script actually adds a space and then creates some environments in it. I use this a lot for like setting up spaces when I want to set up a new project or I'm trying to troubleshoot an issue. I just give it a name, my environments, I run the script, and I've got a new space ready to go. So if we scroll down, once it creates the space, we need to create a Octopus.Client repository that is scoped to that space. And this was the method I shared last time. There's a extension method off of Octopus repository extensions called forSpace. So in C#, you would normally call this by using repository.forSpace, pass the space in. Extension methods don't work like that in PowerShell. You have to like call it directly as a static method. So you end up saying Octopus.Client, Octopus repository extensions, forSpace, pass in the repository, pass in the space. But then you can use the space scoped repository to create those environments. So I think that's pretty much it for the old way. The new way is a little bit different. And this is one of the new pieces that I wasn't aware of. You can create what's called an Octopus or an Octopus client directly. And then using that client, there's two methods called forSystem and forSpace. And those are not extension methods, they're instance methods on Octopus.Client. So if you wanted to create a system scoped repository that would use the default space for any space scoped calls, you use client.forSystem. So that creates our repository. And just to back up a little bit, that maps to this call that we would do before where we're creating the Octopus repository directly. And then we get the rest of the script is pretty much the same. We're going to go in and create our space. The difference is when we want our space scoped repository, we use that client again, client forSpace, instant method, not an extension method, and we pass that space in. And that will create the space scoped repository.
Yeah, it's much cleaner.
It's a lot cleaner. If you're using C#, there's not that much of a difference. I'd probably still use the forSpace extension method because I think it's a little less, it's like maybe one line less setup. But for PowerShell, because of how PowerShell handles extension methods, I think this is much cleaner. It's a little bit easier to reason with. But wanted to redo this video and share that extra information I have now because I'm probably going to go and update all of my example scripts and all of my scripts to use this method just because it's a little bit cleaner than the previous one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
All right. And I don't think I need to run this to show, but it does work. Everybody will just trust me on that point, I hope. All right. So how, is this one that comes up a lot? I know we kind of talked about it last time. It seems to come up in community Slack once every week or 2 weeks, somebody asking about Octopus.Client with spaces.
No, it's one that's came up with me personally.
Okay. All right. Let me jump back over Yeah, so I think as of now, our docs page for Octopus.Client doesn't have an example of using it with spaces. So that's something I'm going to be adding in soon. So hopefully by the time this recording is published, if you go to our docs page for Octopus.Client, which we'll link down in the bottom of the video, it should have those examples that I had there listed in the video that you can link to and get it straight from our docs page. All right, let's go back to the presentation and outro. If you have an interesting question, there's many ways you can get it to us. You can submit it directly through hello.octopus.com/askoctopus. There's a form there you can fill out with a question. You can email us at advice@octopus.com. So this is a new email address, new-ish email address, where if you have questions about how do I do something with Octopus, how do I use a certain API call, how do I use a certain feature, or I have a problem and I don't know what features help me, you can email that address and somebody from our team will help answer it. We'll find the answer and give it to you if there is one, and you may see that question pop up on one of these videos. And if you want to join our Slack community, you can do that at octopus.com/Slack. We've got a pretty active community there, a lot of people asking questions, a lot of community members helping other people with their questions, as well as members of the Octopus team joining in and helping out and conversing there as well. All right, so thank you for watching this Ask Octopus video. Derek, Sean, James, thanks for joining in today.
Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Have a good one.